Hello again. Welcome to another lesson in Algebra 1. Today we're covering section 10.4, using square roots to solve quadratic equations. So our warm-up says find the zeros of the quadratic function f of x equals x squared minus 2x minus 8 by graphing. All right, so first off, we're going to find the axis of symmetry. So this is going to be negative b over 2a, which is negative of negative 2 over 2 times 1. So that's 2 divided by 2, which is 1. All right, and then we'll find the vertex. Our vertex is going to be 1 something. So I plug the 1 back in. So f of 1 equals 1 squared minus 2 times 1 minus 8. So that's 1 minus 2 for negative 1 minus 8 for negative 9. All right, so we know our vertex down kind of low, so we're going to leave some room. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So maybe we'll put our x-axis about right here. Okay. Axis symmetry is basically in the middle of our graph, so I'll just go right here with my f-axis because this is a f function. Okay. And then I'll draw in my axis symmetry. So that's a dotted line through 1. Okay. Our vertex is at 1, negative 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's right on the bottom. This is opening upwards, which is why we left as much room as up as we could. And we're going to make a table until we find the place where our graph crosses the x-axis. And those will be our two answers. All right, so we'll try 1. We know that answer already. That's negative 9. Then we'll go 1 to the right for 2 and hope that it hits on a whole number. So if I plug 2 into this, that's 4 minus 4, which is 0. This will give me negative 8. So that's going to be right here. And then I'll plug in 3. If I plug 3 into this, that's 9 minus 6, which is 3, and 3 minus 8 is negative 5, so that didn't get me there yet. So 3 over, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. And then we'll try 4. 4 is going to give me 16 minus 8, which will give me 0. So 4, 0 is nice. It graphs right here. All right, so there's half of our parabola. We'll mirror it to the other side. So that's mirrored over that one. And then this was 3 away, so 1, 2, 3 away. And we just needed to graph till we find the place where it crosses the x-axis. So the zeros of this function are 4. 4 gave me 0 for a y value, and negative 2. So there are 2 zeros, 4 and negative 2. All right, let's slide it down. So using square roots to solve quadratic equations in the form of ax squared plus c equals 0. So we solve quadratic equations that could be factored in chapter 9. And so far in this chapter, we've solved them by graphing like we did above, because remember the answers or solutions to that equation are the same as the zeros. And we hope that they worked out evenly, but they didn't always, so we have to have some other methods. So this is our first algebraic method to solve it besides factoring. All right, so solve the quadratic equation 2x squared minus 98 equals 0. And you've done this kind of equation before when you used to solve for the missing side in Pythagorean theorem, for missing side of a right triangle. So our first question, we set this, move the 98 to the other side, so 2x squared equals 98. Then we divide both sides by 2, and we have x squared equals 49. Now when you take the square root of something, remember you have two answers. You have a plus and a minus answer here. So plus or minus root 49, which gives me two answers here, plus or minus 7, because this works out evenly. So 7 squared, if I check it here, 7 squared is 49. This turns into 49. 2 times 49 is 98, and 98 does make 0. So it does work. And it also works for negative 7, because the square root of negative 7, okay, is 49 also. So it looks just like the second step there. Question mark, which is 98 minus 98 equals 0, question mark, so 0 does equal 0. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative, because when you square a positive number or you square its opposite, negative number there, you get the same thing. So be careful though, because when you isolate the variable squared and find the other side is negative, then the answer is no solution. So let's say we ended up with something like this. X squared equals negative 10. If I tried to square root both of these, then this part over here would give us an error message on our calculator. And that's because you cannot take the square root of a negative number. No number times itself is going to make negative 10. Okay, so there is no real answer for the square root of a negative number. Also, the graph of this corresponding function would not cross the x-axis. So if I tried to graph it, the one above would have crossed the x-axis at 7 and negative 7. This one, like this, would either be all above or all below the x-axis. All right, let's flip it over and try a couple of these. On the back side, our directions say solve each quadratic equation. So number one, we have 2x squared equals 8. So we want to isolate the x squared in this method because the b value is 0 in this quadratic equation. Okay, so we'll divide both sides by 2 to get 4. And then we square root both sides. So 2 times 2 makes 4, but so does negative 2 times negative 2. So we can write it 2 or negative 2. Or we could write plus or minus 2. And you'll see me write plus or minus 2 for the rest of the time. That's shorthand for positive 2 or negative 2 at the same time. All right. Number 2, first I isolate the m squared part, so I'll add 18 to both sides to get 0. And then the square root of 0 is just 0. There's no plus or minus 0. Number 3, I'll subtract 12 to both sides to get negative 7. 5 minus 12 is negative 7. If I try to square root this, I don't get any answers, so this answer is no solution. If I graph this, the graph of this would never cross the x-axis. Number 4, we'll add 1 to both sides. This will give us 75. And then divide by 3 will give us 25. And then the square root of this, 25 is plus or minus 5. Now the next section says solve the equation, round your solutions to the nearest 100. Because we are not always going to get answers that work out perfectly even. Okay, so number 5, x squared equals 10. And then we square root this. So this will be exactly equal to the square root of plus or minus 10, or plus or minus square root of 10. But we're asked to round here. So we'll do the square root of 10 on a calculator. And we're rounding to the nearest 100th. That's 2 spots past the decimal. So x will be about plus or minus 3.16. Okay. And number 6, we're going to add 1 to both sides. We're still trying to get the k squared by itself. We're going to divide by 3, so this will give us 0.3 with a bar. And then we'll take our square root of this, and we're just going to go ahead and round. So the square root of 1/3 is plus or minus 0.58. Okay. Number 7, 2p squared minus 7 equals 2. So the first thing I'm going to do is add 7 to both sides. Always the add or subtracting part first in a two-step equation. Divide by 2. Now I've isolated the p squared, so I can do the square root of both sides. And we'll go ahead and round it, because we're asked to round in our directions here. So the square root of 4.5 is 2.12 rounded to the nearest 100th. So plus or minus 2.12. And number 8, same kind of thing. We're going to go 2x squared equals add 10 to give us 16. Then we'll divide by 2 to give us 8. And then we're going to do the square root of 8, which is going to be plus or minus rounded to the nearest 100th here. 2.83. Okay, be careful with your rounding and make sure that you're rounding correctly. If you need some help, come and see me. All right, second directions on this, or third directions down here, solve the quadratic equation, round your answer to the nearest 100th. These are a little bit different. We're not going to try to expand this out, okay? Be careful, it's not x squared minus 16. Remember, it would have a middle term in there of negative 8x. But we can isolate this thing. We'll just pretend like this is the x squared. So I'm going to divide both sides by 6. And then I'm going to square root both sides to get rid of the squared on the left side. So this would be plus or minus 7. Square root of 7. And then we add 4. So these are our exact answers, 4 plus or minus root 7. Okay, and then we're going to type it on a calculator to see what they estimate to. So 4 plus root 7 gives me 6.65. And 4 minus root 7 gives me 1.35. So this is two completely different answers, not just the answer and its opposite. So be careful here. And you might say, well, these look silly. Why do we do these? And you will see as we go on, we're going to transform all of our quadratics into something that looks like this. So these are the most important ones to learn, okay, tonight. So make sure we're paying attention here. All right, so number 10, we're going to divide both sides by 4 to isolate the squared part. In this case, it's a binomial being squared. So this will give us 8. And then we'll square root both sides, which will take away the parentheses on this side. And we're going to get plus or minus root 8. Notice I'm not working it out yet. And then I'll add 6 to both sides. So this is not the square root, so it doesn't go under. So 6 plus or minus root 8. And then I'll estimate. 6 plus root 8 is 8.83. And 6 minus root 8 is 3.17. Okay, so we have two answers here. All right, flip it over. Let's try a word problem, and then you have a follow-up. All right, on the back, use the vertical motion model. H equals negative 16t squared plus v sub 0t plus h of 0 to solve this. So during an ice hockey game, a remote-controlled blimp drops a prize from 45 feet above the ice. So this is our h of 0. And because it drops it, our v of 0 is equal to 0. Okay? It's caught by a man 17 feet above the ice, so this is h. So 17 goes in for h. We have negative 16t squared plus 0t plus 45. So then I need to solve this. I'm going to subtract 45 to the other side. So 17 minus 45 will give me negative 28 equals negative 16t squared. We'll go ahead and get rid of the 0t there. Then I'll divide both sides by negative 16. This will give me 1.75 equals t squared. And then I'll square root that. So the square root of 1.75 is about, so 1.32. Okay, so t is going to be about 1.32. All right, so how long was the prize in the air? So certainly it was not in the air for a negative amount of seconds. So the prize was in the air for 1.32 seconds. And that's about. We round it. All right, you have a follow-up down here. There are two questions practicing just equation solving. Note it says round to the nearest hundredth if you need it. Okay, and then there's another word problem down here. Your final solutions are on the bottom, but please don't just copy them. Do your work, check your answer, and know if you need to go back and get some help. Okay, I'll see you in class next time.